Okay, so today we're going to be talking about run training and paces. I know girls camp starts this evening. Those of you that have taken camp before know that you'll have your training paces in after the time trial. For the fall training camp that did the time trial last night, your training paces and groups will be in by Friday, all listen and final surge. So today I want to go over some general training technique, general training tips, how to get the most out of all of the training camps that we do, and some of the paces that we will be targeting throughout camp. Just so that, you know, if threshold sounds like a foreign language to you, repetition interval, kind of go over what all those different paces mean and the purpose of them. So I love this quote at the beginning by Steve Magnus, is just get out the door. There are many days when I'm not motivated to go for a run, and the secret isn't trying to find the motivation. It's more about putting your shoes on and getting out the door. And I think this resonates with a lot of us as runners and with a lot of different things that we do. We might not feel like running, especially some of these evening runs. I know some of you guys love running in the evening. There's a lot of people that would much prefer to run in the morning. I'm one of them. So getting ready to run in the evening can be really hard. But once you get started, you know, your body gets warmed up. Everything kind of starts to click and everything feels better. So it's not necessarily being motivated every day that you show up for a Tuesday or Wednesday camp, depending on what camp you're in, or the Sunday long run, or the days in between. It's really just about get out the door. You start with, I'm just going to make it a half mile and see how I feel. I'm just going to make it a mile, see how I feel. And stringing that consistency is going to make all the difference in the world. So just some general training tips. Start where you are now, not where you want to be. So with the time trial, I know that there's a lot of anxiety, stress that the time trial can induce. It's similar to a race that you want to have a really good performance, you want to have a good time, but I want to encourage you to, one, try to take some of that away. And it just is. It's just a number. It's not good. It's not bad. It's where you are right now. And especially with where we are in the summer, where it's warm, it's humid. If this is your PR 2 mile or 1 mile time trial, then you are nowhere close to your potential because, like I said, it's warm, it's humid, that physiologically affects performance. So that's where we're going to train at right now. My expectation and Coach Teresa's expectation is not that this is going to be a PR time trial or that I want you to submit your PR because then we're training at a pace that would likely be too fast for the conditions that we're training in right now. So it's just giving us an indication of where you are right now so we can set the most appropriate training paces. And then over the course of camp, working towards your goal for camp, whether that's the half marathon in 16 weeks, the 5K in 10 weeks, depending on what camp that you're in. We don't want you training at, if your goal is to break 2 hours in the half marathon, we're not training at that pace right now. That's our goal for 15 weeks from now. We're training at a pace that you're ready for based on your time trial, and then we work to bring that pace down as we get closer to our goal race. The biggest thing I see in the summer, the biggest mistake I see in the summer with runners is running too fast, especially on easy runs, but even in general, that you're trying to hit paces that you could hit in much cooler conditions and several months ago. And that's just, it doesn't work here in Florida. That you might be able to for a few weeks, but then once the weather starts to cool down and we're able to, you know, really get after it, I tend to see a lot of, whether it's burnout or injuries because we're overreaching for it. So start where you are right now, train where you are right now, not where you want to be. Also, we're going to build over time at a reasonable rate. So as coaches, our goal is to put in final surge what we consider to be a reasonable rate week after week. Ultimately, though, I want you to take control of your training. So I know my goal and Coach Teresa's goal is to help also make you as independent as possible in terms of your training program, that you know what to do between camps and moving forward. So we don't want to jump from 10 miles a week to 20 miles a week to 30 miles a week. It's just going to be too much and we're going to be overtrained. So a general rule of thumb is don't increase by more than 10% a week your overall training volume or your long run. There's no research that supports why 10%. It's like someone came up with 10% 50 years ago and we kind of stuck to it because it seems like a good number. So you have to use a little bit of common sense with that. If we're going from 10 miles, 10 to 11 is, you know, very small. We can probably go from 10 to 12, 10 to 13, depending on how you're feeling. But make sure you're building at a reasonable rate Try not to get caught up with everybody in camp. That can be really hard if you show up to a long run and your mileage has been a little lower than someone else in your group and you really love running with this person and you just want to go a couple extra miles. Don't do it. Don't get greedy. Like, that's my favorite saying with running, whether it's paces, workout, long run, don't get greedy with your running. Make sure you're doing what's best for you, and that will pay off in the long run. Also, stress is stress to the body. This is another one of my favorite ones, that whether that's physical stress, emotional stress, mental stress, work stress, family stress, all of the things, stress is stress. Those stress hormones are coursing through your body, and your body's having a reaction to those. So if you had a really stressful day at work and you take a mile off of that easy run, it's really no big deal. We need to take that into account. If you show up on a Tuesday or Wednesday for a workout and you're not just feeling it, but you had a crazy day at work, just modify those paces by 5, 10, 15 seconds. You're still putting the work in, the effort's still there. And just remember, stress is stress. It's not just the stress that we put on ourselves as we're out running, as we're in run camp. Also, everyone is different. You can't compare yourself. I can't compare myself to Alex that I train with, to Danielle that I train with. Your body is going to respond to training differently than other people. Some people might be better at the long run. They might be better at the shorter stuff. So just remember that everyone's different. Everyone's going to adapt to training a bit differently, and that's not good or bad. Again, it just is. There's plenty of different ways we can get to the starting line and the finish line, reaching our goals and being super successful, and there's not a one size fits all. Listen to your body. This is another big one. This is going to tie into feedback when I talk a little later, and how crucial feedback is for us to get from you. But make sure you're listening to your body. If you start to feel some kind of little ache or niggle pop up, please let myself or Teresa know so we can address that early, instead of we get 2 to 3 weeks down the road in training and now you're limping and hobbling and we have to take time off of running. A lot of running related injuries, if we can catch them early, we can continue to run through them. We just need to address them. So listen to your body. That also applies to this time of year in the heat. If you start to feel overheated, if lightheaded, you didn't drink enough during the day, and you know that, just listen to your body out there. We don't want anyone to have any kind of heat exhaustion or symptoms. So definitely listen to your body from a heat standpoint also. Consistency is key is the next one. So there's no research that shows a specific workout, volume, training intensity, anything like that is the magic secret sauce to help you get faster. The only thing that research has shown that makes you faster over time is consistency. So just consistently showing up, regardless of the effort, regardless of the distance, regardless of overall volume, getting out and being consistent. So I encourage you guys over the course of both of these camps to be really consistent every week, and that will pay off at the end of camp. Make a goal. I know we put goals in Final Surge and the top 3 goals for you guys to fill out. That's really helpful for us so that we know where you want to go, but also for you. Once you say a goal out loud, it makes it more real. It gets a little more exciting, and it makes you more accountable to that goal. So make a goal. If you don't want to put in Final Surge, tell a friend, tell somebody to help make you a little bit more accountable. And you guys have heard me say this many times if you've done camp before, that I love big, scary goals. So if it's a big, scary goal that you don't know if you can achieve, write it down. If that talks to you and that resonates with you and it's something that you are really passionate about, that helps keep you motivated through camp, those are my favorite type of goals. And it doesn't matter whether you reach it or not. Like, we'll shoot for it, and whether we reach it this camp or next camp, it doesn't really matter. So get excited about a goal and share it with someone, whether that's us in Final Surge, a training friend, family. It'll really help in the long run. Also, some days are hard. Most days are going to be easy, and this can be really boring. With running specifically, but even sports in general, we can't go hard every day. Your body needs time to adapt. It needs time to recover. We also want to strengthen different systems of our body, and we'll get into this a little bit with our aerobic system, which is we're going to strengthen that more through easier days than our anaerobic system, which is through harder days. So we have those hard days on that Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on what camp you're in. The most of the days in between are just going to be easy, and that's, again, where the magic is. Your long runs, especially to start, are going to be easy. For the half marathon group, we'll start to add in some efforts in there. And just because it seems boring at the time doesn't mean you're not doing something and that it's really effective. And then the last one ties into the build over time at a reasonable rate. We're just going to be progressive, both the weekly and the long runs. We're going to continue to build based on the goals that you have. And we want to make sure that we're not having too big of a jump. So if you look in Final Surge and you see a big jump, please let myself or Teresa know that we are human. We can make mistakes. There's a lot of you guys. So just let us know. Happy to double check it and make sure that we're progressing week to week and not doing too big of a jump, or that you're not progressing from week to week. So these are a couple of training phases. There is a lot of overlap between them. Years ago, it was much more rigid in terms of moving from this base phase to build phase to performance to taper phase. There's a lot more crossover between them. We do a lot of different training paces at all of them. Base phase years ago used to be thought of more as long, easy runs. If we think of a base phase over the summer of 2 to 3 months of just easy runs before we add any type of speed work in. But really, we want to make sure that we're adding some speed work in at that point. We're working on a neuromuscular system, which is just your ability to contract your muscles in a certain way that coordinate a movement. For those of you that just started running or take a long break from running and start running again, and when you feel like a baby giraffe and like you feel like you don't know where your body is in space and it feels super weird, that's more that neuromuscular component of running, that coordination, that ability to run really smoothly. So we incorporate the types of workouts that will help that neuromuscular coordination into that base phase, even though it's mostly aerobic miles. So these first few weeks of camp will be more of this base phase where we're establishing consistency, we're getting in a routine, we're improving durability, strength of your muscles, tendons, ligaments, bones, and improving efficiency and general fitness. So we want to make sure that not only your aerobic system can handle running, but also your muscles, tendons, bones, ligaments are able to adapt and get ready for running. So if you feel like aerobically you feel really good, you can talk, your heart rate's low, you want to start increasing, that's when we want to be careful, because we don't want a calf strain to pop up, an Achilles tendonitis, that kind of thing, because we didn't give your body and its structure the amount of time that it needed to adapt. Then there's the build phase. So we're building on that base. If you think of it as like a pyramid or a triangle, we have this big base phase at the bottom. Then we start to have a build phase. This is when the workouts get a bit more specific. So they'll get more specific to that 5K or half marathon that you're targeting, but we're not getting quite race specific yet. So we're getting closer to that. We start adding tempo runs. There's a wide variety of workouts and paces in here. I will warn you guys that at least for the fall camp, like next week's a perfect example, we're going to be at the track and we're doing 400s, but they're going to be 400s at tempo pace with short rest, tempo or threshold pace with short rest. Because it is so hot and humid right now in Florida, it's not advantageous to go out and run like a 4-mile tempo, a 5-mile tempo. It's going to beat you guys up a lot, both physically and mentally. It's going to take too long to recover from, and the chance of you hitting the proper paces is going to be pretty low just because of the conditions. So we're going to shorten those into 400s, have short rest, and still get the benefits of doing a threshold or tempo run. So just because we're going to the track to do 400s doesn't mean we're ripping those 400s as fast as we can. We're going to do them more at that threshold pace. So this would be more of a build phase type workout where we're starting to build that durability through workouts like tempo or threshold runs, which I'll go over here in a bit. Then we get into that performance phase. This is going to be the last few weeks of camp where we start to really dial in, whether it's that 5K, half marathon, or marathon goal pace. Our long runs for the fall camp will have more half marathon specific workouts in them. And a lot of our even workouts on Tuesday will be more of that race specific for both of the camps. So we're starting to really dial in, get your body used to just nailing in that goal race pace that you have. And then we have taper time. This is a great time. Usually the last week, the duration of that taper depends on the race. Typically, the longer the race, a little bit longer the taper. Your body just needs a little bit more to recover. I do want to say, and I'll say this again when we get there, that once we hit that taper, let's say it's a week out for like the half marathon, the first couple of days you probably won't feel great. Your body's absorbing all the work that you've been doing for the last several weeks. It's adapting, it's recovering, it's getting ready, and you might feel sluggish and like, how am I going to do this in 6 days? But the goal is that your body starts to come around. We do enough workouts and enough runs to keep your body used to the schedule that it's been having, and then once it's recovered, it's ready to go. But the beginning of a taper can feel kind of sluggish at times. So here are the training paces that once they're in final surge, you will see. You have easy, which we've kind of gone over, but it promotes that physiological benefits of having that solid base that then we can stack higher intensity workouts on top of. So it's improving your muscles' ability to deliver oxygen, we're strengthening our heart, and then we're allowing those muscles and bones to adapt. We have our threshold or tempo. The purpose is to improve endurance. Interval, the goal is to stress your aerobic system. So this is the one that uses oxygen. Repetition, we're more working on that speed and economy. So it's not necessarily anaerobic that we're working on that system that does not use oxygen, but just working on that speed, that turnover, that neuromuscular coordination I mentioned. And then race pace is just dialing the effort that we're going to have in on race day. So I see a lot of runners that get stuck in whether it's zone 2 or heart rate, different heart rate zones, et cetera, that they get stuck in, oh, I have to be in this zone. These zones are really like arbitrary numbers. There's tons of different ones depending on who you talk to, what physiologist you talk to, what coach you talk to, that like what percent of your max heart rate we want you training at. But for most people, you don't need to worry about if you're in zone 2 or not. You just need to accumulate a lot of time exercising while being able to have a full conversation. So it's lots of easy, consistently over the long haul. The precise zone doesn't really matter. And I would almost say that it doesn't matter for anyone. Because again, depending on the conditions, and anyone, this actually little tidbit, anyone that uses heart rate to train, this time of year in Florida with the heat and humidity, that number becomes completely irrelevant. That your heart is working so hard to send your blood out to your skin to cool itself that it's not a good indication of how hard you're working. So if you like heart rate, I think there's a lot of merit to it. There's a lot of benefit, but we need to wait until the weather cools down before we use that again. So easy paces, I'm not going to read this again. I've said it a couple times, but this is, the intensity is generally 65 to 80% of that heart rate max. Again, we're not going to use heart rate this camp, especially as we're coming out of summer and we're in August here. It's not really reliable to tell us how hard that you're working. But these should be comfortable. They should be conversation pace. That's what I've put in Final Surge. You should be able to have a conversation with the person next to you. So when you go out for a long run, go out for the easy run, make sure you're not pushing these paces too fast. They will be slower because it's hot outside. It just is what it is. When the weather cools down, the paces will come down, I promise. So make sure you're keeping your easy runs easy. Threshold tempo pace. So like I said, the purpose is to improve your endurance by increasing your ability to endure a greater intensity for a longer period of time. I think a lot of runners do this threshold tempo pace too fast. They try to make it too hard, but it should really be comfortably uncomfortable. I didn't learn this until, really probably 2 or 3 years ago, getting more into marathon training, excuse me. We're like, oh, like it's actually not terrible. I used to hate tempo runs. I'd be starfish on the ground at the end trying to push it, and that's not a true tempo run. When you get done, you should be able to walk a little bit. You should be able to do a little more. Ideally, this is a pace that you could hold for a race that's 50 to 60 minutes long. Obviously, we're not going to go out and test. Let's go do a 60-minute time trial and see what you could hold. So we'll use that 88 to 92% of your heart rate max, or like with the time trial, I will put all of your paces in here and you'll have your threshold pace based on your time trial, and that's what we'll target. And because that was a time trial based in these same conditions, that's pretty reliable for us to use. An example of this would be 3 by 1 mile at threshold or tempo pace with short rest. So you're looking at 1 to 2 minutes in between. You do a 20-minute tempo, like I mentioned, a 4 or 5 mile tempo run. We're not going to do those longer runs during camp because of the heat. So even those 400s, like if we're doing 10 or 12 400s with very short rest, that could also be considered a threshold tempo workout. We're just adapting it to the conditions. Then we have interval pace. So this is going to be at a higher intensity. This is more around that heart rate max. These intervals are hard, but they're not an all-out effort. Typically, we'll do them somewhere in that 3 to 5 minute range. So the distance is going to depend on how fast you're doing it. It's a pace that you could hold for a race that's 10 to 12 minutes. So whether that's a mile race, a 2 mile race, et cetera, that's about the pace and the effort that we're looking for, but for a much shorter duration. You're also going to have more rest than you would in like a threshold type workout. So the examples I have are you're doing 2 minutes at this interval pace and you're going to have 2 minutes easy between, or 4 minutes at this interval pace, 3 minutes easy between. So you have more rest in between to recover between those efforts. And then repetition pace is going to be our fastest pace. This is going to be used to improve speed and recovery. This is a fast pace, but it's not necessarily hard because we're not doing it for long enough to make it really hard. We'll typically do it no more than 90 seconds, sometimes up to 2 minutes. It's similar to what you would do maybe an 800 to a mile pace in a race that's maybe 3 to 5 minutes long, about half that duration as the interval pace was in terms of the race. The race pace that you would have, the race pace of interval. So if we're looking at a 10 to 12 minute race for interval, we're looking closer to that 5 minute race for repetition pace if we're dialing that into what that pace would be. But again, these paces will all be in final surge. Examples would be 200s, typically 400s. You're going to get plenty of rest in between to make sure that you can hit those faster paces, but that they don't feel super hard as you're doing it. And I want to throw this in here, just recovery. Aerobic training is about getting oxygen to your muscles as quickly as possible. So while we're running, we're placing stress on our overall system, increasing the demands of your muscles, heart, lungs. But then it's the recovery in between our runs where our body's able to adapt to the stimulus and the demand that we placed on it. So there's a whole bunch of different types of recovery. I'll do a talk about just recovery, but these can be recovery runs. It can be active recovery, which could be a walk, a swim, cross training, yoga, anything like that. Assisted recovery, passive recovery, sleep. Sleep is the best form of recovery and probably the most underrated. That athletes in general want to do all the things with the fancy Normatec boots and the ice plunges and the tart cherry juice and anything we can do to recover, when really sleep is going to be your number one recovery tool. So just keep that in mind, that especially as we get into camp, as the workouts get longer, as they get a bit harder, make sure that you're recovering between those. That's just as important as the hard work that we put in during the week. I also want to touch on this. It ties into like what I mentioned with seeing a lot of runners that do their easy runs and their workouts a bit too fast, that the vast majority of hard workouts, that should have an S there, should be 7 or 8 out of 10 where you have another rep in the tank. Going to complete exhaustion looks great on Instagram, but isn't the best for your long-term performance. Save the max efforts for race day. So one of the things that you'll hear me say a lot, at least at the fall camp, is I don't want to see you starfish on the floor when we get done. So when we get done, I don't want you sitting on the ground, laying there for 5 minutes, having to recover from the workout. I want you finishing saying, I could do one more. Like if I had to, I could do one more. We want it to be a high intensity. We don't want it to be a max effort every week. You will run yourself into the ground. You might have some short-term gains where you feel like you get really fast, really quick. You're doing all this high intensity work, but it's not sustainable over time. So just make sure you're listening to your body. You're looking at this most weeks when you're out there, that could I do one more rep? Am I going too hard? And that even ties into not getting caught up with going with other people with camp just because you want to. That don't get greedy out there. 7 or 8 out of 10 most days of the week is where the sweet spot is. So here's the weekly structure. Fall camp, since we're in our second week, you guys have kind of seen this in Final Surge. Girls camp is going to have the same structure. You're going to mostly have easy runs during the week to improve that economy and general fitness. We'll have that quality workout, which will be a variety of different paces that I mentioned. The key is in that variety. If we were to do the same workout every week, your body would adapt, and that would be it. If we did 3 by a mile every Tuesday, that'd be great for the first couple weeks. And then your body's like, okay, well, I'm used to this. I don't need to get any better. I don't need to adapt. So we want to keep changing the stimulus. So that's why we keep changing the workouts that we're doing, whether that's duration, intensity, et cetera. And then we have our long run on Sundays. This long run I did put in here shouldn't be more than 30 to 40% of your weekly volume. So if you're running 20 miles a week, I don't want that long run to be like a 10 to 12 mile run. We want that to be a little less and make sure that we're running some of the other days of the week also. And of course, that long run can come up as your weekly volume comes up. How to get the most out of camp. I touched on this with some of the tips, so some of these will be redundant, but prioritize workout days and come prepared to work hard. This is going to tie into don't self-sabotage, but fall camp, you're working out Tuesday evenings at 6 p.m. and we meet on Sundays at 6 a.m. Girls camp, you meet on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. and then 6:30 on Sundays. So prioritize those days. Look at the day before and make sure that you're not doing too much. If you're doing strength, you're not doing it super heavy. That's going to make you sore the next day. That's going to take away from your run. You're making sure to stay hydrated. You're trying to get the sleep on time. Just anything you can do to prioritize those workout days. Right now, with being pregnant and everything going on and being limited with what I can run, Tuesday is like the day of the week I prioritize to go out there and run with Alex and some of my other run friends. So Monday, like I don't run on Mondays. I make sure to take an ice bath. That seems to calm everything down in my hips. I'm drinking my Element the night before to get electrolytes in. Like I am setting up, and it's not always successful, but I'm setting everything up to be as successful as possible for that Tuesday morning run that we do. So make sure you're prioritizing those workout days and come prepared to work hard. We know that it's going to be a tough workout. I know it's hot out there. Our goal is to make you uncomfortable, to make you better. So just know that going into it. We're not going to ever ask you to do something that we don't think you can do. So come out there ready to work hard. That ties into that be intentional, both during your workouts, leading up to the workouts. Just be intentional with what you're doing and you're going to get more out of it. Don't self-sabotage. Don't not drink water all day before you come out. Again, don't do crazy strength the day before. Don't do anything that's going to jeopardize those workouts. Communicate, communicate, communicate. This is one of my biggest ones. You'll hear me say it all through camp. If you've done camps before, you've heard me say it. Communicate and give feedback. We can't feel what you're feeling. We don't know what you go through during the day. So put any feedback you have in Final Surge. Send us messages through Final Surge. That helps us help you even more. So just make sure you're putting all of that in there. We can adjust training. We can add in exercises if there's a niggle. We can change the weekly structure around based on your schedule. So please make sure you're communicating with us. Be consistent. I've harped on it. That's that, the magic is in the consistency. So be consistent. Whether you have to change a Wednesday run to a Thursday run, that doesn't matter. Consistently getting your runs in during the week is going to make all the difference. And then most importantly, have fun. There's more and more research coming out that when you're enjoying what you're doing, when you're having fun out there, you do perform better. So make sure you're having fun out there. You're smiling. That's what we're all out there about. That yes, we want to work hard. We want to get better, but ultimately we want to have fun with everyone around us. All right. I'm not going to read this quote because I've read too many and I get so quote happy in these things, but it's there if you want to read it. And then does anybody have any questions either related to training paces, camp in general, running, anything that I can help with? Yes, Nancy.
Okay. I have a question about Final Surge. Hold
on. I still can't hear you.
Oh,
there you are. I hear you.
Okay. I have a question about Final Surge. I did listen to the video, but when I put in my goals, for instance, and it comes up, 1, 2, and 3, I can't get it to go in there. It goes into the post-workout notes. And is that the way it's supposed to be?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. You have to be able to edit the 1, 2, 3. For whatever reason, when we put it in as coaches, it doesn't make it, I want to say edible on your side, but you don't have the ability to edit it on your side. So if you just put it in that post-workout note, that's perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? All right, I'll hang on for about another 5 minutes if anybody thinks of anything. But girls camp, I will see you guys tonight. I'm bringing the pizza for our kickoff and the time trial that you guys have tonight. For fall training camp, look for those training paces. I've started to put the pace groups together, but that'll all be in by Friday. And then everybody is in Cocoa Village for the long run this Sunday. Fall camp starting at 6 a.m. and girls camp starting at 6:30. So enjoy the rest of your day, guys, and I'll hang on if anybody thinks of a question.
Thank you.